Welcome back. Well, we left off on problem number 13, but let me start it all over just so that we don't get confused kind of doing the problem over the course of two videos. So number 13, it starts off with this pattern, 3, 5, minus 5. And what it says in the problem is that each odd number term, or each even number term, is 2 more than the previous term, and then each odd number term is -1 times the previous term, right? So we started with 3. So let me say term. Let me write here term, and then value, and then what we did. Maybe we could call that f of x, right? Or the function. How did we go from one value to the next? So if we make a table, see, term 1 is values 3, and that's just the starting one. Term 2 is 5. That's because we added 2, right? We added 2 to 3. And we could write 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. Term 3 is minus 5, and that's because -1 times this 5 times this 5. Let me draw these arrows, is equal to -5. And then we add, again, I'm going to switch colors just to keep it interesting. Oh, whoops. So term 4, we're going to add, it's going to be -5. It's going to be -5 plus 2, which equals -3. -3. Then term 5 is going to be -3 times -1, which equals 3 again, right? And I think you can see how we're getting these patterns. We just keep switching between adding 2 and multiplying by -1. And then so term 6 is going to be what? It's going to be this plus 2, which is 5. And I think you're seeing the pattern again. Let me do a bunch more, and I'll do it outside of the scope of this chart. But term 7, let me term value. Term 7 is going to be what? It's going to be -1 times that, so -5. And you see the pattern now. Term 8 is going to be -3. Term 9 is going to be what? -3, -3. So from here we added 2, so we multiply it by -1, so it's going to be 3 again. Right? And you could just experiment with yourself. Once you understand how this pattern works, just keep once you understand how the sequence works, do a bunch of terms, until you see a cycle. And that's the key thing. In any SAT problem, when they ask you like, what is the 100th term, it's going to have a cycle, because they don't expect you to sit and write out 100 terms, because you would run out of time. So if they ask you the 100th term, there's probably going to, the pattern probably repeats every 3 or 4 or 5 or at most 6 terms. And then you can use that to figure out what the 100th term is. So here we see that the pattern repeats, let's see, 3, 5, -5, -3, 3, 5, -5, -3, 3. So we see it repeats every 4th term, right? This is kind of one cycle, then 3, 5, -3, and then this is another circle, right? Cycle. So it has this 4 pattern. So can we come up with any term that is a multiple of 4? What is our value? Well, at 4, our value is -3. What's the next multiple of 4? 8. At 8, our value is -3. So in general, and if we did 12, we'd also get -3, right? If you don't believe me, you should try it out. So at any multiple of 4, we know our value is -3. So what I do is, they want to know the 55th term. They want to know the 55th term. 55th term. So what is the value? What term is a multiple of 4 that is closest to 55? Let's see. Is 56 a multiple of 4? Well, yeah, 56. Let's see. That's 10. 14 times 4 is 56, right? So the 56th term. We know the 56th term, because 56 is a multiple of 4, just like 4 and 8 and 12. So the 56th term is 56th. I have trouble saying that. Maybe I have a little lisp. 56th term is -3, right? Because it's a multiple of 4. If the 56th term is -3, what is the 55th term? Well, the term before the -3 term is always the -5 term, right? Up here, -3, it's always -5. So the answer is -5 is the 55th term. And that is choice A. Very good. All right, let's move on to the next question. Invert colors. I know that one's a little hard, and those you always just have to experiment a little bit, try to see the cycle, and then make sure you have your terms right, that you're starting on the first term as opposed to the 0th term, and then figure out what the easiest value is as close to what they're asking as possible, and then you can kind of move backwards or forwards. That's how I do it. That's so you don't get too confused with the shifts on the terms. All right, number 14. In the xy plane, the equation of line L is, okay, let me write that down. Number 14. The equation of line L is y is equal to 2x plus 5. If the line M is the reflection of L in the x-axis, what is the equation of line M? So I'm going to draw a graph for you just so you understand what I'm doing. But if on the real SAT, you really don't have to do this because you would, once again, run out of time. But let me... Oh, man, I'm going to run out of time if I can't draw a straight line. I'm being a stickler for this. Oh, I still couldn't do it, but I'll move forward. So that was the y-axis. That's the x-axis. Better. Okay, so this line, so y equals 2x plus 5. So if you remember from our slope and y-intercept modules, the y-intercept is going to be 5 right here. And then the line is going to have a slope of 2, right? So the line is going to look something like this. It's going to look something like this. That's line L. Line L. Anyway, line L. It sounds like. Anyway, this is line L. And then we want to know, they say line M is the reflection of L in the x-axis. So reflection, we kind of view the x-axis. This is the x-axis. So it's like if we were looking at this in a pool of water, the reflection would be like if you took this and flipped it over the x-axis. So the line M is going to look something like this. It's going to look something like this. Line M is going to look like this. So a couple of things. It's like the mirror image. If we flipped it, right? It's like we flipped it over the axis. So if the y-intercept here is 5, the y-intercept here is going to be minus 5, right? Because we just flipped it. And similarly, if every 1 this moves up 2, right? Because that's its slope. Rise over 1 is 2. For every 1 we move here to the right, we're going to go down 2. So the slope is going to be the negative of this, or negative 2. So line M, so this is line M. The equation of line M is going to be y is equal to, it's going to have the negative slope, right? The same slope, but it just moves in the downward direction. So it's going to be minus 2x. And then its y-intercept is, instead of plus 5, it's going to be minus 5. Minus 2x minus 5. And that is choice A. It looks like the next problem involves a lot of drawing, and I only have 1.5 minutes left in this video. So I will do the next problem in the next video. I will see you soon.